homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri, homage to all the lineage benevolent masters. The supreme and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta. Next, we will continue teaching the chapter on prajna in the Platform Sutra. In this chapter on prajna, the main focus is on the very profound principles of prajna emptiness. During our teaching, each person should develop some faith in the Dharma gate of emptiness. The Dharma gate of emptiness is truly an extremely special nectar and wondrous medicine for cutting off the root of samsara. Therefore, for each person drowning in samsara to have the fortune in this very life to hear this name, to have the word emptiness resound in our ears, it should be said that this is having great merit. Some people have listened to teachings for several years, but in the end, it seems they haven't attained realization. They themselves think, what I've studied these past few years has no meaning, it was all in vain. This kind of statement is unreasonable because they don't understand karma. If they understood karma, even though their studies may not be exceptionally outstanding, it will certainly be meaningful. For example, in the worldly context, people study in elementary school, middle school, and university, but in the end they don't find a job, or their work has no special features. Then they say all that previous study was completely wasted, but actually it's not. Actually, what they studied over all those years will certainly be beneficial for their life. Similarly, studying the Dharma now should be extremely beneficial for everyone. The way of studying the Dharma in this current era is different from the past. In the past, from the stories of the Chan school and stories of great masters, people had the opportunity to rely on many teachers face to face. At that time, there weren't many people, and many people weren't very busy. In various aspects, there were such conditions, but now it's indeed somewhat difficult. Given this situation, I think we must now make use of contemporary internet technology. This is very necessary for truly seeking knowledge. Like in our academy, everyone has the opportunity to attend teachings from various Dharma teachers. But for people in cities who have their own families and work, if you really want to study in this lifetime, there are certain difficulties. At this time, we rely on the internet and some modern means. Actually, there is no difference. It's completely the same. Sometimes I think this way. For example, I've finished listening to a great master's lecture. After listening to it, I'm very happy inside. You see, if I really wanted to attend that lecture in person, I might have to spend a lot of time and energy. But I don't need to spend that much. I can receive this teaching on my own bed with just a small computer. How fortunate I have this kind of feeling. Today I was telling our volunteer workers here that truly establishing a website that is beneficial for spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings is actually no different from building a Buddhist monastery. Truly, it's not fake. Or relying on such means for various kinds of fraud for money. It's not like that. Why do I say this? For example, we establish the academy and build a Dharma hall for tens of millions. How many people are inside? Several thousand people study, contemplate, and practice every day. Everyone feels that this monastery is very useful. Similarly, in the era of the internet, on a website, I've discovered that on some websites every day, there are several thousand, hundreds, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. Today there are many. Tomorrow there are many. Sometimes I see, including the Jibei Buddhist website and other great masters' websites, there are so many people clicking and studying every day. I feel this is better than any monastery, better than any Dharma center. In terms of effectiveness, it should have special power. For example, we personally go to a monastery to study and receive the Dharma. Now, personally going there online, we also receive the Dharma and study in the same way. There is such an opportunity. So from the perspective of its meaning, it should also be the same. Therefore, for related volunteer workers, for example, we personally go to a monastery. Today I'm here pouring tea for the Sangha, sweeping the floor for the Sangha. They feel, I've truly accumulated merit for the monastics today, thinking this way. If I go online to serve all the people who are practicing, I clean up some garbage on the internet and help them. Actually, it's no different from us truly doing Buddhist activities. I myself think so. In the ultimate sense, everything is empty. But in the conventional sense, we all need the conditions for abandoning suffering and obtaining happiness, and such conditions are possible. I'm not emphasizing illegal internet use or doing various kinds of things. I don't emphasize these at all. If done through the internet this way, it's completely the same. For example, you going to an especially impure worldly place to do bad things, or going to an impure place online, actually the motivation is the same and the effect is the same. Therefore, as practitioners of the 21st century, as Dharma propagators, we must understand what people currently need, what kind of crisis Buddhism is facing, and what kind of challenges are needed. In this process, we as people who have generated bodhicitta should also utilize the knowledge we have studied with mindfulness and vigilance, doing these things very purely. If you use these things while doing bad things yourself, then this fault is also quite great. So what I'm saying here is, if we now have the opportunity, everyone should still, for these dharma gates of emptiness and methods of practice. We must personally rely on teachers, but for the vast majority of people, it's very difficult. But now there's an advantage. Now with the dharma, we can say it's the Buddha's inconceivable blessings and our sentient beings' merit coming to fruition. In the past, when a teacher gave teachings, perhaps a few hundred people around him could hear. Beyond that, there wasn't even a loudspeaker. It was very difficult. Now, one Dharma teacher's teachings can reach thousands of households. So in the future, my hope is that anyone who knows how to use these technologies, now in the Han region, there are also many eminent monks, great masters, and lay practitioners, some who truly understand the Dharma very well. In Tibetan areas, there are many eminent monks and great masters. Among these eminent monks and great masters, some teach the scriptures and expound the Dharma, some give empowerments and recite scriptures. Some can neither give empowerments nor teach scriptures and expound the Dharma. But some eminent monks and great masters from Tibetan areas indeed go to the Han region and have many people take refuge. They themselves have no selfish intentions. It's not for money, nor for other purposes. In that case, we still greatly admire them, because nowadays there are especially many people with very empty thoughts. Many people need faith, many people need to be filled. It's impossible for 1 or 2 people, or 10 or 20 people, to satisfy everyone's aspirations. This is impossible. So truly, the more genuine spiritual friends there are, the better, to be honest. Many disciples think, I can only generate aspiration for my teacher, I can do things for my teacher, but others seem to be very excluded. Actually, this is also unnecessary. One should have a more inclusive mind, but this inclusive mind also needs some discernment. Some people indeed have various selfish intentions. For example, in the name of schools, in the name of monasteries, in the name of the Dharma, they start doing various kinds of things. Now, some worldly leaders also say, don't do things in my name, otherwise when the time comes, don't blame me for not showing mercy. This is also true. Now, using others to do things, this way of doing things is very bad. No matter who, no matter what status, if they do this, we as Buddhists should oppose or criticize. It's necessary, but if with pure mind, pure conduct, beneficial to sentient beings, any such means of spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings, everyone can accept and also actively participate. Most importantly, now is a very good opportunity. If we don't seize this opportunity, it's very possible that in another 10 or 20 years, many people's minds will be occupied by other thoughts. Such thoughts are not beneficial to their own physical and mental health and may not be very meaningful to the people and environment around them. So, we need what is beneficial to us, to humanity, and to all sentient beings, truly beneficial thoughts and wisdom. We must vigorously promote them. In this regard, I think everyone can also contemplate. In general, we need to have a spirit. Don't let everyone be very inferior. Oh, this won't work, that won't work. Whenever it comes to throwing cold water on things, they speak eloquently. When speaking positive words, they seem to have no courage, feeling especially sad and painful. Some, due to age, their minds seem to lack courage. Some feel their bodies are especially poor. Some have very empty thoughts. When speaking of spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings or practice, they say they can't do it. Actually, we shouldn't be like this. The day before yesterday at the academy, I saw an old man from a design institute. I'm not too clear if he has faith, but I still very much admire his spirit. He is 76 years old. He came here from far away to help with some of our academy's architectural designs. Around the entire academy, these mountains are very high. Perhaps some young people climbing the mountain would be gasping for breath and unable to walk. But this old gentleman, together with several construction teams, went around the entire periphery of Larung, and when he came down, he was still very energetic. When meeting in our office, he was drinking Red Bull while explaining to us about some of our buildings from last year. I told some Dharma teachers, for your building, he found 9 faults and also praised 3 things. His thinking was especially clear. Generally speaking, for a 76-year-old person, not to mention walking, giving suggestions to others, many people at this time, I can't do it now. Perhaps they have a particularly fragile mentality toward themselves. After seeing this person, I myself thought, wow, still, people need to have a kind of courage. I should also learn from him. So I think among worldly people, there are many role models for us. Some people's hearts are very courageous. As for Mahayana Buddhism's effect on people's minds, it should be the best education for abandoning selfish and self-centered thoughts. People who have received this kind of education, didn't I say the day before yesterday? Buddhist education should cultivate high-level talent. It is such an especially lofty theoretical system and practice of actual realization. So through this kind of study, even if it's just listening to one teaching, it's very important for changing one's life in this very existence and elevating one's values and outlook on life. Before I explained why I'm teaching these things. Next, in the Platform Sutra, it says this: good friends, Mahaprajnaparamita is the most honored, the supreme, the primary. It is without abiding, without going, and without coming. It is from this that all the Buddhas of the three periods of time emerge. Earlier we explained Maha, Prajna, and also Paramita. Great wisdom arriving at the other shore. This is the meaning of Mahaprajna Paramita. Among all the Dharma gates, it is the most noble, the most supreme, the most primary. In this world, the wisdom of realizing emptiness is the most precious, the best, the most wonderful, the most profound, the most special, and so on. Actually, its true essence is not as described orally. Actually, the true reality of all phenomena is without coming, without abiding, without going. In the beginning, there is no source. In the middle, it has never abided. And in the end, there is no going. In the tantric teachings, when directly pointing out the nature of mind, we examine the origins and details of mind, first finding what the source of mind is. We investigate whether the source of mind comes from the body or from external objects. Now, when thinking wildly or when the mind is abiding, we observe whether it abides in the body or in external objects. Finally, when this mind or your discriminating thoughts disappear, we observe whether they disappear into external objects or into one's own body, and so on. When investigating this way, finally through practice, one completely understands that the so-called mind is unattainable. The past mind is unattainable. The present mind is unattainable. The future mind is unattainable. In the tantric teachings, there are especially direct instructions. In this wisdom, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three times, past, present, and future, and all the accomplished masters and eminent monks of the past, present, and future, even very good practitioners, all came through practicing this way. Therefore, the Dharma gate of prajna, emptiness, can be said to be the essence of human wisdom. It can also be said to be the highest and most profound Dharma. In the process of our contemplation, we will also discover that indeed it is especially supreme. When one uses great wisdom, one destroys the enervating defilements of the afflictions of the five skandhas. Those who cultivate in this fashion will definitely accomplish the enlightenment of Buddhahood, transforming the three poisons into discipline, meditation, and wisdom. The source of the Buddhas of the three times is the wisdom of Prajna Paramita. To attain this, we need, in practice and study, to have systematic study and contemplation of such great wisdom at the beginning. Through such great wisdom, one can completely destroy all the afflictive defilements brought about by our attachment to the five skandhas of ourselves. All of these, through studying and contemplating diligently and practicing for a long time with spiritual friends, this is not something that can be immediately solved by listening to one or two teachings. Because our afflictions are deep-rooted and substantial grasping has always been heavy and deep, it's impossible by hearing just one or two sentences. We also don't have, like the Sixth Patriarch and the great masters of the past, such a good foundation. We don't have such good basis. If this is the case, we still need to study and contemplate very earnestly. After studying and contemplating, utilizing such great wisdom, one will certainly be able to destroy all attachment to the skandhas. Finally, the five skandhas transform into the five Buddhas, and the five elements transform into the five Buddha consorts. In this way, pure objects and subjects can be transformed. Those who cultivate in this fashion will definitely accomplish the enlightenment of Buddhahood. Continuously practicing this way, not just for 1 or 2 days. Now, some worldly people think that practice is like learning Qigong. Simply study for 2 days, wondering if there's any spiritual response, and if not, they give up. This shows they don't understand Buddhist principles. If you practice continuously for a long time in this way, over time you will certainly accomplish the path of Buddhahood. Finally, the three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion transform into the three trainings of discipline, meditation, and wisdom. Greed is gradually subdued and finally transformed into the completely gentle wisdom of discipline, the wisdom of the precepts, the wisdom of moral discipline. Hatred, through practice, finally transforms into meditative concentration, and delusion transforms into wisdom. Greed, hatred, and delusion, the three great poisons of humanity. For each of us, what is the greatest culprit? It is the three poisons. If we recognize their nature, recognize their level of emptiness, the three poisons can transform into the true three trainings. Previously, when I was translating, it was called the Sutra of the Non-Arising of Phenomena. In the Han region's Tripitaka, there is the Sutra of the Non-Activity of Phenomena. Desire is nirvana, and so are hatred and delusion. Within these three things, there are immeasurable Buddha paths. These three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion actually are just like what we discussed yesterday. Afflictions are bodhi. There are immeasurable wisdom and meditative concentration of Buddhas. This is also the meaning. If a person is without discrimination regarding greed, hatred, and delusion and enters into the nature of the three poisons, this is to see bodhi. If we observe the nature of greed, hatred, and delusion in a non-discriminatory way, when you have recognized the nature of greed, hatred, and delusion, you can completely see bodhi. Afflictions are bodhi. Many people previously thought that in the tantric teachings, when seeing an image of union or seeing instant Buddhahood, everyone criticizes and slanders. But actually, for ordinary people, indeed they don't have such qualifications. If one truly has cultivated to a very high level of realization, indeed there will be such states. But do ordinary people have this? They don't have this qualification. At the highest level, all the afflictive poisons like greed, hatred, and delusion, the five poisons, completely transform into the five great wisdoms. At this time, in the small vehicle, discriminating thoughts that are considered to need abandonment, when one finally completely recognizes their nature, this realm, even Chinese Buddhism, must acknowledge. If you don't acknowledge it, perhaps even the Platform Sutra can't be taught. The Platform Sutra would become self-contradictory. Therefore, here, discipline, meditation, and wisdom, the three trainings we should cultivate. How can the three poisons transform into discipline, meditation, and wisdom? This is very difficult. If its nature, for example, if the nature of delusion is not wisdom, then no matter what, it's impossible to transform into wisdom. For example, if the nature of delusion is like fire and the nature of wisdom is like water, water and fire are incompatible. So would it transform into it? It's impossible. But if it's like the essence of gold ornaments is gold itself, through refinement, when one recognizes its nature, it can be manifested. So regarding this issue, everyone should also understand Mahayana Buddhism. This is still very necessary. Otherwise, now some people toward Buddhism, to say they don't understand, they've heard a few specialized terms. But to say they understand, specifically they don't really understand. Moreover, this kind of understanding is just at the level of research or academics. Actually, the research is not very deep. There must be a kind of research combined with practice and realization. Just like Tibetan Buddhism, through debate, reasoning, repeated analysis, and discussion, the realm finally arrived at is extremely stable. Therefore, systematic study and contemplation, we still always emphasize this, it's very important. Good friends, in this teaching of ours, 84,000 wisdoms are generated from the one prajna. Why? Because the people of this world have 84,000 enervating defilements. If they were without these enervating defilements, wisdom would always be manifest and they would not depart from the self-nature. The Sixth Patriarch said, "Good friends, my prajna dharma gate is actually like what? It's the 84,000 wisdoms generated from the first prajna of true reality. The 84,000 wisdoms can also be said to be the 84,000 dharma gates. Because the Buddha has already completely understood the true reality of all phenomena. The wisdom of understanding true reality is called Dharma discourse. Actually, 84,000 for India is an auspicious colloquialism. They often use 84,000. Also, the true 84,000 Dharma gates, for greed, hatred, and delusion respectively, there are 21,000 Dharma gates. For the combined afflictions of greed, hatred, and delusion, there are 21,000 Dharma gates. Previously, the three trainings of discipline, meditation, and wisdom were used, and later the tantric teachings were used. We have also previously cited scriptural authority from the treasury of precious qualities to explain this issue. So when we speak of 84,000 Dharma gates, why is it such a fixed number as 84,000? Because worldly people have 84,000 afflictions. All those subsumed under greed are 21,000. Those subsumed under hatred are also 21,000, roughly like this. The parasites in our bodies, the body hair and head hair, now worldly researchers, when they roughly dissect the human body, there are some like this. So sentient beings' afflictions are fundamentally limitless and boundless. Why? In the Tantra Glorious Web of Magical Illusion, it says the Buddha's emanations are limitless and boundless. The reason discriminating thoughts are limitless and boundless. But roughly classified, there are 84,000 enervating defilements and afflictions. To counteract such afflictions, the Buddha proclaimed the 84,000 Dharma gates. If there were no such enervating defilements, wisdom would always be manifest and would not depart from the Tathagatagarbha nature. To be enlightened to this Dharma is to be without thought, without recollection, without attachment, not activating the false and deceptive, use the true suchness nature with wisdom to contemplate. Regarding all dharmas, not grasping and not rejecting, this is to see the nature and accomplish the path of Buddhahood. If one completely understands what was explained before, prajna emptiness, prajna paramita, one who realizes such dharma is without recollection. No recollection of the past, no delusive thoughts of the future, no attachment in the present. If one truly understands prajaparamita regarding the past, whatever appeared in one's life before, always thinking about it every day, missing it, one doesn't have this. The objects of current attachment also don't exist. Future wild thoughts, in the future will I become such and such. Such delusive thoughts also don't exist. And moreover, one doesn't give rise to deceitful and false thoughts. Using one's true mind, true wisdom, to contemplate the nature of one's own mind, the so-called true self. Regarding all dharmas, not grasping and not rejecting. Finally reaching a state where regarding all good and evil, all dharmas, one neither grasps nor rejects, one has reached a state where whether it's love or hatred, everything is without essence. Previously, the third patriarch also said, just refrain from hatred and love, and you will be lucidly clear. As long as you don't crave objects and don't hate or resent anyone, at this time you will naturally understand and comprehend the nature of mind. If one understands the Dharma gate of emptiness, all deceitful thoughts and clinging thoughts are absent. We worldly people also is a bit. No matter what nationality, what country's people, our mental states are all the same. So-called humanity all has humanity's common attachments. Like the animal realm, they have their common afflictions. Although each person's appearance is different, perhaps their dress is different, their preferences are different, but what is the general commonality? It's having greed, having hatred, having delusion. The source of greed, hatred, and delusion is produced by attachment. Just now I was thinking, a person came for blessings and she had ornaments on her head. Below was amber, above the amber was coral, and behind were many turquoise stones. If I were a woman, I certainly, from my current state of mind, I wouldn't think this is especially beautiful. From today's state of mind, because I feel this is very laborious. Here there's such a big thing, there's that big thing, and behind there's one, behind there's also a long one. But for her, she's attached to thinking this is the best. Although she's very laborious, she feels this is truly very good. She certainly has this kind of good attachment. When she looks this way, whether on herself or on others, similarly, many of us, for example, some people, their clothing, their hair, many of our habits and dress, they themselves feel this is very good. But actually, is there truly such goodness? We can know when analyzing from the Dharma gate of emptiness, not to mention people's habitual attachment to a certain thing as good or bad. Actually, even its nature of the slightest particle doesn't exist. At this time, we must acknowledge that the prajna emptiness Dharma gate should be a truth that all people in the world must acknowledge. But provisionally, the Buddha also didn't negate the phenomena we sentient beings see. These phenomena, I feel this is very good, you feel that is very good, but the so-called very good is actually related to one's own attachment. At the same time, it's also related to the customs and habits around us. For example, Indian people generally think their way of dressing is very good. African people, they feel their way is very good. People of other countries are all like this. If they all gather together and truly analyze, there isn't a single true object. From these principles, I think one can completely see. Actually, many things sentient beings are attached to are just unsuitable and unreasonable. But even if unreasonable, it's a kind of inverted delusive thought. This inverted delusive thought exists continuously before realizing emptiness. When we truly realize emptiness, of course, all these completely vanish without a trace. Before truly realizing emptiness, but when we still have some understanding of emptiness, it indeed will be helpful. It's helpful in life. I encountered a person who said, previously in life I was especially suffering. In the end, I was, so to speak, between life and death, sometimes wanting to die, sometimes wanting to live in such a state. But now I finally understand I don't want to die. I feel indeed everyone has this. For example, your attachment to emotions, to status, to wealth, or your especially strong attachment to your own body, it produces a mental state that is especially difficult to dispel. This mental state has a very great impact on you for lifetimes to come. So now some of us, perhaps after hearing the Prajna Dharma Gate, may not completely be like the great Master Sixth Patriarch, suddenly awakening on the spot. But because of its blessing power, one knows that some things encountered in one's life before were too foolish. Although we now haven't completely reached the realm of being able to let go of everything, we ourselves also know that if we're so attached, actually this is unreasonable. It's a kind of inversion. First, we need to discover that this attachment is inverted. If you know it's inverted, gradually you won't admire or be curious about inverted things. This is also a kind of power of prajna, emptiness. Everyone can gradually attain the realm of accomplishing the path of neither grasping nor rejecting. Good friends, if you wish to enter into the profound dharmadhatu and the samadhi of prajna, you must cultivate the practice of prajna. Recite the Diamond Prajna Sutra and you will see the nature. You should know that this sutra has immeasurable and limitless merit. The sutra clearly praises it. I cannot explain it fully here. The Sixth Patriarch further said, if among you there are people who wish to enter into the very profound prajna, emptiness, wisdom, or you wish to enter into the samadhi of prajna, one is into wisdom, the other is into samadhi, into the meditative concentration of prajna, then you must practice in daily life, cultivate the practice of prajna. On one hand, your arising thoughts should also be embraced by emptiness. Your actions and conduct should also be embraced by prajna, emptiness. Whatever actions don't have especially substantial grasping, at the same time uphold and recite the Vajrakedika Prajnaparamita Sutra, which is the Diamond Sutra. Some of us often recite it. Previously, when I taught the Diamond Sutra, at that time, many people vowed to recite the Diamond Sutra. I don't know how many people are still continuing now, perhaps. That was in the year 2000. I taught the Diamond Sutra, like the Diamond Sutra, verse summary of Prajnaparamita, and also the Heart Sutra. After studying these Dharma gates of emptiness, attachment in life, afflictive suffering will decrease. But some people are a bit too extreme, not even doing good deeds. Studying the Diamond Sutra, nothing else is needed. Even circumambulating stupas, offering butter lamps, making offerings to Buddhas, none of these are needed. This kind of statement is unreasonable. Virtuous deeds, before reaching the highest state, now we still need to continue doing them. Reciting the Diamond Sutra can enable one to attain the realm of seeing the Buddha in one's own nature. At the same time, know that this scripture has immeasurable and limitless merit. The sutra already has clear praise and exposition. There's no need here for detailed textual explanation. Actually, in the Diamond Sutra, it's already been explained. For example, if some people fill the 3,000-fold universe with the 7 precious substances and make offerings to all the Tathagatas of the 3 times, the merit is extremely great. It's not as good as if some people take a 4-line verse from the Diamond Sutra and proclaim it to others. The merit far exceeds theirs. One verse of the Diamond Sutra, upholding it oneself, has immeasurable and limitless merit. A person who upholds the Diamond Sutra, their body becomes a Buddha stupa, a sacred place. All evil demons and heterodox paths cannot destroy them, and so on. There are very many immeasurable and limitless merits. These merits, I previously specially translated the Sutra of the Merits of the Diamond. At that time, quite a number of us read the Diamond Sutra every day. In the Han region, starting from the Sixth Patriarch, the Fifth Patriarch also specially studied the Diamond Sutra. Earlier, we already explained this in the chapter on origins. So practicing the Diamond Sutra should have very great merit. There was a Dharma teacher called Daoning. In Chan Koans, there is Chan Master Daoning. He volunteered service for the Sangha. Originally called bathing attendant, it seems he managed bathing, managed washing work. He volunteered service for the Sangha very laboriously. Once during an interval, when he had a bit of free time, he himself recited the Diamond Sutra. When he reached a certain passage, he felt as if his entire body and mind had completely disappeared. At this time, he was very joyful. While washing his feet, when his feet were soaked in boiling water, he awakened on the spot. Later, people analyzed that on one hand, it was the blessing of the Diamond Sutra. The merit is extremely great. On the other hand, his volunteering service for the Sangha, I still want to speak about the merit of volunteering. Because if there were no volunteers at all, spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings would be impossible. Now, in this society, we need many people's joint dedication. Some people often tell me, including in our study groups outside, many people volunteer for 2 or 3 years and then already step down. I feel that after volunteering for a long time, your 3 trainings of discipline, meditation, and wisdom should increase. Except for a very few with shallow merit, I often think, around me there are many monastics and volunteers, some for over 10 years, many people. Sometimes I think, if they hadn't volunteered, would they still be monastics now? Perhaps they'd have disrobed, who knows? I truly think this way. So, as for volunteering, on one hand, volunteering for the Sangha has a kind of blessing. On the other hand, when you volunteer, it's equivalent to having a rope binding you there. We, ordinary beings, if there isn't a kind of special rope binding you, if you're free and easy, if you run to many places, it's hard to say whether our aspiration for the path will continue, because the environment and one's own merit, etc., are very related. Many people feel, won't this have some impact? Actually, for people who truly volunteer with pure motivation, there should be no impact. Some Dharma teachers here, I myself feel I'm very busy. Nobody here is as busy as me. Later, I learned that some of our class-leading Dharma teachers, some Dharma teachers indeed volunteer here and also volunteer there. Every time I mention it, okay. This is for the Guru, this is for the Sangha, this is for everyone, always like this. In the end, besides volunteering, even their own daily recitations for a long time, they can't complete them every day, but they themselves think, for sentient beings, this is also acceptable. Later, I felt that although perhaps for our practice and study, to be honest, if volunteering is especially extensive, there is impact. If the volunteering isn't too much, there shouldn't be a great impact. Perhaps if you don't volunteer, you use this time in distraction. I see some Dharma friends, and when they're volunteering for the Sangha, it's okay, on one hand studying and contemplating, on the other hand volunteering, but when they're not volunteering, completely their time is wasted. They don't practice very well at all. So I hope that we, whether in the monastic Sangha or in lay gatherings, everyone having a spirit of volunteering for spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings is very important. Some teachers may, in terms of solitary meditation and solitary practice, from this perspective speak of some faults, but I feel they have their own reasons. For example, in some of the Buddha's scriptures, addressing a particular issue, proclaiming faults is also necessary. Similarly, here I proclaim the merit of volunteering. On one hand, for purifying one's own karmic obscurations, one needs a great deal of work. The day before yesterday, when our academy's Dharma teachers had a meeting, I also said, in the future, if ordaining at the academy, one should volunteer in various departments for 1 or 2 years. This way, later, we'll know what their character is like. This is very important. Also, no matter what previous education level, whether people with high diplomas, those whose karma is very heavy, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, perhaps in the worldly realm they committed all kinds of evil karma. In that case, while volunteering for the Sangha and purifying through confession, only then can one possibly practice the path. One should be able to purify. In history, there are many such cases. For example, the continued records of the transmission of the lamp was compiled by a great master in the Ming dynasty. In it, it seems 3,118 people are discussed. The records of the transmission of the lamp is from the Song dynasty, and the continued records is from the Ming era. In the continued records of the transmission of the lamp, there's one called Chan Master Wenyue. He relied on Chan Master Dayu. Dayu means great foolishness. Sometimes when I give everyone here a foolish Dharma name, they're very unhappy in the Dharma name. But many great masters in the Han region deliberately give you names like foolish, blind, etc. There are many such names. Now people most like wisdom, compassion, great wisdom, great forbearance. All the 6 parameters have been used many times, and still it's not enough. The 37 factors of enlightenment, the 6 parameters, the Buddha's 32 marks. Actually, a name is not necessarily very good. Like Master Dayu, a truly remarkable great Chan master, when Master Wenyue went to study under him and seek the Dharma, the master didn't immediately teach him. Wenyue said, "Please turn the Dharma wheel for me." The master replied, "Before the Dharma wheel turns, the food wheel must turn first." Meaning the Dharma wheel hasn't turned yet, but the Sangha lacks food, so you should go out and gather alms. Turn the food wheel for us first, and after that, I'll find a way to transmit the Dharma to you. Later, Wenyue went out to gather alms and collected much food to support the Sangha. After finishing, he repeatedly requested, "Can you teach me the Dharma now?" The master said, "Now our monks here need coal because the weather is cold and it's snowing. Can you go out and find some?" So he went out again to gather alms and find coal for the Sangha's heating and cooking. Did they have boilers back then? Probably not. Later he went to seek the Dharma again, but still didn't receive it. The master said, "Our Sangha now lacks a discipline master. You should serve as the discipline master." At that point, Master Wenyue became a bit unhappy. "I've done so much for the Sangha, while others do nothing and easily receive the Dharma. I've done so much and still haven't received it." He had a slight issue with the master, but he still committed himself. After making this commitment because of this dedication, one time when he went to the bathroom, there happened to be some water buckets belonging to the monks that fell near him. At first he was startled, but through that sound, he attained realization. This is recorded in Chan Koans. I just mentioned the continued records of the transmission of the lamp. Among the recorded sayings of masters there, about 1,203 have their words preserved. Others without recorded sayings, actually masters like Uyi explained all these principles thoroughly. We descendants should read Master Uyi's guide to reading the Tripitaka. When I was teaching the preliminary practices, I mentioned this once. Nowadays people don't study, don't read books, and don't practice, but they're constantly talking about others' faults. Actually, this doesn't accord with the true conduct of the great masters of the past. By understanding for ourselves how the great masters of the past conducted themselves, we know that Master Wenyu attained realization, and he left some recorded sayings from his realization. After his realization, he didn't immediately leave, but continued to stay with Master Dayu. On one hand, he was very grateful to him, because through serving the Sangha for such a long time, his karma was purified, and finally, through this method of expression, he attained realization. Afterwards, he continued to study under him for 8 more years, without leaving immediately. Nowadays, some people study under certain masters or Dharma teachers, staying with them when they first begin or when they're poor. But once they gain a bit of wisdom or capability, they abandon them and go off on their own. Actually, when you gain some wisdom, you should continue to receive confirmation and continue to protect your mind stream. What I'm discussing here is that serving the Sangha and serving the master is truly the best method of purification for oneself. Like how Mappa the translator made Milarepa continuously build houses, and finally, at a certain point, he attained realization. Recently, I met a secular leader who had previously read much of Milarepa's biography. He said, my boss has been extremely strict with me lately. He keeps making me revise his speech drafts, revise and revise again. I've already revised it 7 or 8 times, and he still wants more revisions. So now I'm truly becoming Milarepa, and my boss is truly Mappa the translator. He's probably constantly revising written work. Actually, it is necessary to be strict with written work. Nowadays, some volunteers, if their article is corrected by even 1 or 2 words, immediately throw up their hands. Some volunteers have bad tempers. I've encountered many volunteers. Some have very good temperaments, and though they have their own views, When they encounter even a slight bruising of their ego, they immediately react. This is due to our education. From childhood, parents and teachers praise you. You're doing so well. Your homework is excellent. You're a college graduate. You're this and that. You come to believe your own discriminating thoughts are especially valid. Actually, growing up in such an environment, you can't withstand even the slightest hardship. Indeed, nowadays, some of our volunteers, when others correct them even slightly, fly into a rage, and for a long time their anger won't subside. Eventually, others become very resistant to and afraid of such volunteers, thinking, this person is like this with everyone. Many such people exist. This is caused by education, the education we've been given from childhood. Yesterday I heard such words from someone in the secular world, a secular article that had already been revised 7 or 8 times and still needed more revision. But on one hand, this person might have no choice but to show respect because it's his boss. But on the other hand, his patience is actually quite good. People need a process of training. In this process of training, we need to learn what kind of patience is needed, what kind of mutual respect is needed. I think in the process of people working together, certain things should be said directly face to face. But after you've said them, you shouldn't always be pointing out others' faults while refusing to accept anything yourself. This is a foolish approach. Some people think they're very wise, but actually, they're quite foolish. We have a saying in Tibetan areas, even if there's a yak on your own face, you can't see it, but a tiny louse on someone else's face you can spot. Others' slightest faults are exaggerated and embellished when you talk about them, yet you have many faults, problems, and habits that you're unwilling to change. But still think you're something special and swagger around. Our current education, growing up in this kind of education, everyone don't think that you yourself are truly a noble being. But regarding certain issues, we should on one hand have the ability to accept others' criticism, while also maintaining pure view toward others. And regarding the discernment of truth and the pursuit of truth, we must have good confidence. This is very important. What I just discussed was about the merits of the Diamond Sutra, and also discussed the Diamond Sutra as I went along. In the process of reciting the Diamond Sutra, there are volunteers who have attained realization through reading the Diamond Sutra, and there are volunteers who have attained realization through other means. Many people particularly like the idea of realization, but I personally feel when I read the biographies of great Chan masters and the biographies of great masters from Tibetan areas, whether there are such realized beings nowadays, there should be. This kind of realization isn't necessarily like becoming a Buddha or achieving an especially high state, but completely recognizing the true face of mind. There should be such people. It's just that, especially in His Holiness's tradition, even for realized great masters, in order to protect many people, and for his personal reasons as well, he doesn't explicitly identify someone as a realized being. There are reasons for this. Whether there are truly realized beings who have recognized the nature of mind nowadays, I think there are very many. Among great masters, there are many realized beings, and among ordinary monks and lay people, there are also many realized beings. It's just that nowadays people haven't documented their deeds or written down their recognition of the nature of mind. Nowadays, many people don't consider realization as a particularly high state or something especially remarkable. Many people's values regarding realization, even if someone has realized, they don't necessarily acknowledge it and don't have reverence for them. So this issue, contemporary society, differs from some past situations. This Dharma teaching is for the highest vehicle, taught for those with great wisdom, taught for those with superior faculties. Those of little wisdom and inferior faculties, when they hear it, their minds give rise to disbelief. Why is this? It's like when the Dragon King rains upon Jambudvipa, cities, towns, and villages all get swept away, floating like date leaves. But if it rains upon the great ocean, there is neither increase nor decrease. Here it explains that this Dharma teaching is most suitable for people of the highest vehicle, those with the greatest wisdom. The Prajnaparamita teaching on emptiness is most appropriate for them. But if you teach the Dharma of Prajna emptiness to those without wisdom and with inferior faculties, not only will they not give rise to joy, but they may very likely reject it. An analogy. When the Dragon King reigns in Jambudvipa, the southern continent, small cities, regions, and settlements all float away like tree leaves, like small countries such as Japan, where even a small tsunami sweeps everything out to sea. So in the world, when the sky rains heavily and floods occur, small places quickly get swept away. But if heavy rain enters the great ocean, the ocean neither increases nor decreases. Similarly, regarding such emptiness teachings we just discussed, some people with good past karmic tendencies and merit, with fortune in this life, when you talk to them about secret mantra and emptiness, they're extremely joyful and easily accept it. Just as it says in the Entering the Middle Way, some people's eyes fill with tears of joy and they can accept it. But some Hinayana practitioners, and those with especially inferior faculties, when they hear it, they become very afraid. Isn't it also discussed in our preliminary practices? When Venerable Atisha came to Tibetan areas, at first 2 monks who practiced the 12 ascetic practices came, and when he taught them about selflessness of persons, they were very joyful. But when he taught selflessness of phenomena, they became very afraid. Finally, when he taught them the Heart Sutra, they were terrified and covered their ears and ran away. Later, Atisha said with great sadness, "Simply upholding pure precepts is still not enough. One must have Mahayana's great compassion, bodhicitta, and the wisdom of selflessness. Without these two, having only pure precepts is still not enough." Buddhist scriptures also discuss this, that such emptiness teachings cannot be taught to those of inferior faculties. For example, the Sutra of the Densa Rei says emptiness should be taught according to the appropriate time, but should not be expounded to unsuitable vessels. Unsuitable vessels means those who are not proper Dharma vessels. Why? If expounded to unsuitable places, nectar itself becomes poison. What does this mean? Emptiness should be taught according to sentient beings' readiness, but should not be taught to unsuitable Dharma vessels. If taught to unsuitable vessels, originally emptiness teachings are like nectar, but this nectar can easily become poison. Our secret mantra teachings are even more so. For those who have faith in secret mantra, who have merit from past and present lives, if you teach them secret mantra, it's excellent and brings them tremendous benefit. But for those with shallow wisdom and wrong views, not to mention secret mantra, even if you teach them emptiness, they will also reject it. They're very extreme. Sometimes they think, "Oh, if everything is empty, then I won't do anything. I'll abandon all virtuous thoughts." Or they become especially afraid, thinking, "If all phenomena are empty, then what should I do?" We dare not accept that all phenomena are empty. In the past, there was such a history. In the Dharma treasure biography of Bodhidharma, written by Wu Zhenzi during the Ming dynasty, it's not especially widespread in the Han region, but there is such a story. When he was transmitting the Dharma in the Han region, there was someone called Shen Guang. Shen Guang was the name of Huike before he became the second patriarch. At that time, he was very famous for teaching scriptures in the Nanjing area. When Bodhidharma traveled from Guangzhou to Nanjing, Bodhidharma asked, "What are you teaching?" He replied, "I'm teaching the Dharma for liberation from birth and death." Bodhidharma said, "The Dharma originally cannot be spoken. What liberation from birth and death do you have?" When he said this, Shenguang became very angry, thinking, "You don't even acknowledge this so-called Dharma for liberation from birth and death. You must hold wrong views." At that time, he had iron prayer beads in his hand and he struck with them, and as a result, 2 of Bodhidharma's teeth were damaged. After they were damaged, he didn't spit them out because he knew that if a saint's teeth fall to the ground, disasters will occur in that place. When front teeth fall out, you swallow them together with the blood. The Han region also has this saying. Later, Bodhidharma went to the Henan area. Later, Shenguang encountered harassment from death spirits. In his experience, death spirits said, "Your life will soon be impermanent." He became very afraid and said, "Whose life won't be impermanent?" They said, "That dark monk whose teeth you knocked out, probably from India, with darker skin, he has the emptiness teaching of no birth and death." Later he went to study under him and then faced the wall for 9 years continuously seeking the Dharma. Later Bodhidharma transmitted the Dharma to him and he became Huike, the second patriarch. This is recorded in the Dharma treasure biography of Bodhidharma. It seems this isn't widely circulated in other parts of the Han region. Whether Bodhidharma actually had teeth or not, we can't see clearly in the paintings. If he didn't have teeth, it should be that initially Huike couldn't accept emptiness teachings. When you talk about birth and death, samsara, and cause and effect, just like ordinary people nowadays, everyone easily accepts it. But when you say all phenomena are empty, there's no liberation from birth and death, no making offerings above or giving below. When you say this, people become especially afraid. Therefore, at that time, when Chan Buddhism first flourished in the Han region, many people didn't recognize it either. Similarly, nowadays, some views and practices of secret mantra are understandably not accepted in the Han region. But gradually, because it is truth, people will slowly grasp it, and eventually they will become familiar with its value. People will also attain the true path through this kind of practice. Today I had originally arranged to continue below, but since the time is about up, I'll teach up to here. If it rains upon the great ocean, there is neither increase nor decrease. If one is a person of great wisdom, they can completely accept these teachings without increase or decrease, just as rainwater falls into the great ocean and the ocean can hold it. I'll teach up to here.
Sodargye Badna Sodargye Sodargye Badna Sodargye Sodargye Badna Sodargye